Have you ever really thought about the colors you're wearing right now? You know, the blue in your jeans or the red in a logo you saw today. They seem so simple, but they're not. They're actually holding a secret history, a kind of code that, once you learn how to read it, tells an incredible story of technology, of power, and really, of human civilization itself. So, let's start decoding.
So what are you looking at here? This isn't a down payment on a house. This was the price for a single pound of a very special purple dye back in the Roman Empire. Now, to put that in perspective for you, that was worth the same as 3 pounds of solid gold. This wasn't just color. This was one of the most valuable things in the entire ancient world. A true technological marvel that helped build empires and define what it meant to have power.
So, where did this whole journey even begin? Well, our story kicks off right at the very dawn of humanity. The urge to add color to our world. It's not some modern thing. It's one of our oldest, most deeply rooted instincts.
Which is mind-blowing when you look at this is the sheer amount of time we're talking about. For tens of thousands of years, we were just using minerals like ochre, basically as paint. But then, around 34,000 BCE, something amazing happens. We see the first proof that humans are actively processing plants to create dye. That was a massive technological leap. From there, it was only a matter of time before we weren't just staining things anymore. By 6,000 BCE, we were dyeing the actual fabrics we wore.
Okay, so that leads us to the next big problem they had to solve. I mean, it's one thing to stain a piece of cloth, right? But how do you make that color permanent? How do you make it stick through washing and rain and sunlight? The answer was this brilliant breakthrough in, believe it or not, applied chemistry.
The secret weapon was something called a mordant. The easiest way to think about it is like a chemical glue. Without it, most natural dyes would just wash right out. But with a mordant, you could create a chemical bond, a bridge, between the dye and the fiber itself, locking that color in for good. Nailing this process was the technical key that unlocked the entire future of colored clothing.
And you can see just how sophisticated this chemistry got by looking at the ancient Egyptians. This wasn't just throwing things in a pot and hoping for the best. It was a precise, multi-step industrial process. You soak it, you boil it, and then you add the mordant to make it permanent. For their time, this was seriously high-tech, and it allowed for the mass production of colored textiles.
All right, so what happens when you've mastered the technology to create these incredible permanent colors? Well, the simple laws of economics kick in. The rarest, most difficult colors to make became symbols of unbelievable wealth and power.
So let's circle back to that crazy expensive purple. This is why it costs so much. To get just 1.4 grams of pure Tyrian purple dye, I'm talking less than what would fill a thimble, you had to harvest and process 12,000 sea snails. The amount of labor, the resources, it was just astronomical. And that's what made it the ultimate status symbol.
And hey, this wasn't just happening in Rome. This quote from the famous Chinese historian Sima Qian shows the exact same thing was happening on the other side of the world. A successful merchant, just by dealing in a common dye from the madder root, could become as rich and as powerful as a feudal lord. Color wasn't just a product, it was power.
So, naturally, with color being this valuable, what do you think happened next? Yep, the people in charge wanted to control it. Color became a language, a visual code that was used to enforce the social hierarchy and let everyone know instantly who was in charge.
And what's just fascinating here is how two totally separate empires, the Roman Empire and China's Tang Dynasty, with no real influence on each other in this area, both picked the exact same color, purple, to be the ultimate symbol of power. And they both passed laws to keep anyone else from using it. In Rome, it got even crazier. If you weren't the emperor and you wore an all-purple toga, it wasn't just illegal, it was an act of treason.
And in China, they turned this system of control into an exact science. I mean, look at this. Your rank in the entire government was instantly recognizable by the color of your robe. You could tell in a second who the top minister was versus some low-level clerk. The whole power structure was laid out right there, a visual blueprint they wore on their backs every single day.
So we've covered the tech and the social impact, but there's one last crucial piece to this story, and it's a side that we often just completely ignore, the environmental cost. Because this ancient industry had an impact on the planet that looks surprisingly modern.
Okay, get ready for these numbers, because they are staggering. Historical records tell us that to dye just 1 ton of textiles, you could need up to 200 tons of fresh water. And as you can see here, About 80% of that water got dumped right back into rivers as polluted wastewater, just filled with leftover dyes and those chemical mordants.
You know, when we talk about pollution from the fast fashion industry today, we act like it's some new problem that just popped up, but it's not. It's really not. The basic challenge, the huge water consumption and the creation of industrial wastewater, that's been with us for thousands of years. It's a legacy that's coded right into the colors we make.
Which brings us to this final thought. We like to think that picking a color is the ultimate personal choice, right? It's all about self-expression. But is it really? Why do we still associate purple with royalty, or see red as a color that means power or danger? It seems that even today, we're all still reading a code that was written thousands of years ago, following these ancient, unspoken rules that we've pretty much forgotten.